Hello and welcome to Murder Dictionary Podcast. My name is Brianna and that is Courtney.
Hello.
So before we jump into our story for tonight, we just want to remind you of a few things that you'll find in our description. First of all, you'll find links to our social media if you want to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You'll also find links to the resources that we use to research. So I know some people last week had questions about the studies that we were looking up for video games. So those will always be in the notes. So if you're asking those questions, you want to see and read a little bit more, then definitely check those out. And you will also find links to our Patreon and our Threadless. So if you want to get little merch items and access to bonus episodes, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/murderdictionarypodcast. And you get larger merch items at murderdictionary.threadless.com. So we have a few new people on our Patreon this week. We wanted to say thank you to Jean, Fox, Dan, and Jenny.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. So with all that said, then actually, I forgot, I have one more thing. I did an episode of Let's Talk About True Crime with Esther from, you guys should know her from Once Upon a Crime. So she has a new show out, and we did an episode together on the new Netflix movie, The Dirt.
It was so good.
Oh, thank you.
I listened to it.
It was a lot of fun.
It sounded like you had a great time.
I just really like talking about terrible rock star behavior. So this was pretty fun for me. We've talked about that story before.
Yeah.
Just off air.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many facts that you brought to it that weren't in the whole time I was screaming at the TV. Wait, that didn't happen on that street. What are you doing? You know, that kind of stuff. And yeah, you brought it all home for us.
Yeah, the new Dirt movie, it shows overall mostly what happened with Motley Crue, but people don't know what Motley Crue has to do with true crime. And man, they committed a lot of crimes, even up to a murder.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's
so it's
true.
worth checking out The Dirt. And then also I just really had a lot of fun on Let's Talk About True Crime. So check that out.
Yeah, it was fun.
So with all that said, we can get into our next gamer murderer. We are on letter G, and we're talking about video game players. So today we're talking about a video game murderer that actually was addicted to video games. So last week we talked about a little bit of research and studies on, video games making people possibly less empathetic. And the murder that we talked about was kind of copying the video games that he played. But this week, this is basically someone being addicted to the video gaming.
Yeah.
So I looked up a little bit of information about video game addiction. And what's weird to me is when I Googled video game addiction, a ton of treatment centers popped up that were specifically for teenagers, which is weird. Like usually if you see any recovery websites or whatever addiction treatment, it doesn't really have an age specification. And this one, it was all teenagers, which was really crazy. So video game addiction is a distinct behavioral addiction characterized by excessive or compulsive use of computer games or video games to the point where it interferes with a person's real life.
If you're a teenager who's playing this much, where your parents are Googling video game rehab, you're probably at the point where you have to be separated physically from your console.
Right.
To me, I just go, okay, parents, separate them. But, sometimes whatever, maybe they need a break too. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the important distinction because really you can be an excessive video game player while not having the addiction component. But when it becomes to the point where it interferes with your everyday life, when, someone tries to separate you from the video game and you just refuse, then it's a problem.
You start saying things like my precious, looking like Gollum. It's nighttime.
Exactly.
We've got a problem now.
So video game addiction may present itself as compulsive gaming, social isolation, mood swings, diminished imagination, and hyper-focus on in-game achievements, while, of course, distancing themselves from the events of their real life. So the DSM-5 that was released in 2013 actually chose not to include video game addiction in their new edition. However, they did indicate that internet gaming disorder was an area that needed to be further studied. So it looks like it's a matter of time before it's in the DSM.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah.
They're acknowledging.
In June 2018, the World Health Organization included gaming disorder within the 11th revision of its International Statistical Classification of Disease and Related Health Problems. So even though it's not in the DSM, it seems like reputable psychological and health organizations are definitely coming around to the point where they know they need to include it.
Yeah, it's called a disorder now at this point.
For a reason.
Yeah.
Various studies conducted all over the world with various age groups of gamers and across gender lines had various assessment criteria, have revealed that prevalences of addiction among gamers were somewhere between 0.6%, but going up to as high as 6%. So nobody's really come up with something that's conclusive, but the numbers are kind of low. And I think, depending on where you are in the world, I think those go up. So some of the American studies were a little bit high.
That's probably true.
Not surprising. So in other words, no matter whose numbers you look at, the vast majority of video game players are not actually addicted to the video games.
They understand this is a game.
Right. And they can still peel themselves away from it and engage in their normal reality life,
Yes.
Various research also makes it clear that playing video games, even if it's for prolonged periods of time, is not the same thing as video game addiction. There's a clear distinction. You can still play, even excessively.
Is it like binge drinking?
Right.
Sort
Something
of.
like that.
Somewhere on those.
It's low-level addiction, I guess. But, of course, I don't know, it's just characterized by different components. In 2018, there was a study by Laura Stockdale and Sarah Coyne that took a sample of teens and young adults who were actually addicted to video games and found that the addicted players were more anxious and depressed, and they showed poor impulse control as well as cognitive functioning than gamers who were not addicted. So, of course, we've talked about it before. There's kind of this chicken and the egg thing. There's other studies that show that video game addiction is more likely to occur in individuals who already had pre-existing depression or stressors or people that cope with issues by avoiding them instead of dealing with them. So you kind of don't know if the studies are just seeing what was there before the video games or what was caused by the video games.
I don't know either.
It's really hard to tell. And I mean, it's the same thing, I think, with any sort of other addiction, substance abuse or whatnot, I mean, someone who is depressed or has other avoidance of stressors or whatnot and doesn't look at the problems may be more likely to use substances to cope. Or if you have, we know addiction is a family disease. If it runs in your family, it increases your probability of being an alcoholic if your dad was, So it's kind of the same thing. So again, the case that we're talking about on this episode is about a person who was clearly addicted to video games and exhibiting that sort of behavior. Daniel Petric was born on August 24th, 1991, in Wellington, Ohio, to Reverend Mark and Susan Petric. By all accounts, Daniel was the kind of kid who liked to test boundaries, and he always challenged his parents' rules.
He's a PK. He's a preacher's kid. They're
right?
always the worst.
You got to push it when you're like the son of a preacher. You got to see what all those boundaries are.
You got to test it.
Yeah. But we all know kids like this, even from being very, very little. They're just not going along with the program.
You tell them that stove is hot. It doesn't matter. They've got to touch it to find out.
Exactly. Unless I find out for myself, then I don't know. My dad has this thing where he always talks about how a child's eyeballs are in their fingertips.
Oh, that's such a great description.
And not all children are like that. I mean, some are just very well behaved, but Daniel was definitely that kid. His eyeballs were in his fingertips. From a very early age, he would do pretty much the opposite of whatever his parents said. As he got older, he would experience more and more consequences for these kind of actions. But Daniel still continued to be very rebellious, even though it would start to catch up with him in his teens. His father, Mark, like we said, was a pastor at New Life Assembly of God Church in Wellington, Ohio. His mother, Susan, was an administrator at a healthcare office who led their devout family with this very clear sense of right and wrong.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, it was very seemingly black and white disciplinary kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which you find in most religious households.
Yes.
Since they maintained a faith-based household, there were very clear consequences to actions, and the kids were strictly disciplined. Daniel was an active child who enjoyed sports, but after having access to video games at a friend's house, he definitely shifted his focus to video games. He was less and less active over time.
Yeah, he didn't even have video games at his house. Like, they were not about that. They weren't buying him video games and all this. You know, he found them at his friend's house.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of people do.
Exactly. Yeah, it's pure exposure. His friend Jonathan Johnson would often play video games with Daniel when Daniel came over to his house, and that was seemingly his first exposure. Over time, Daniel would ask to go over to Jonathan's house to play video games more and more frequently. Eventually, he would be at Jonathan's sometimes as long as 7 or 8 hours a day.
That is a long time.
I was seriously doing the math on that. I know it's stupid, but I was like, okay, you get out of school at 3 o'clock. The earliest you could be there is 3:30. Like, why aren't Jonathan's parents kicking him out at like 10 o'clock?
I thought the same thing. I was doing this math too.
Like nobody's parents would just let me just stay and chill that long, right?
I mean, I guess they just let Jonathan play for 12 hours at a time too, so...
You know, it would make sense because there are certain parents that are like just letting the TV raise their kids.
You just order a bigger pizza.
Right. Yeah. Maybe Jonathan's parents were like that, not cooking at home, not really doing activities with the kids. So, yeah, that would make sense. Of course, Daniel's parents, Mark and Susan Petric, didn't believe that violent first-person shooter-style video games were appropriate for their 16-year-old son. His parents felt that violence didn't really align with their religious beliefs, and they tried to make sure that their kid did not have access to them.
Like, so far, they're doing everything right.
So far, they are, except for I would make the argument that the Bible is extremely violent. Like, sorry, but if you're going to say like, oh, this nonviolent stuff, it's like, that's kind of bullshit. Just saying.
With you on that. But
it's a super side note. But to me, it's just like, you can't really say that. Like, the thing that you're exposing your child to in Sunday school is violent as shit. Yeah, worse than any video game.
It is.
Just saying.
Everything you're told is like, oh, you can only play for so long. You know, they had like they were very good about controlling and rules and everything. Didn't matter. They've done everything that you're supposed to do. Control their screen time, you know, all this stuff. It doesn't matter here.
Yeah, I think that once there's that addiction component and maybe some other underlying mental health stuff, then he just couldn't get away from him, you know? But they are doing all the right things because most of the time we see that kids that'll commit crimes when they're younger come from this kind of household where the parents just aren't invested. They're not like doing homework with the kids. They're not trying to set boundaries or rules. They're not trying to enforce certain things. And so the kid acts out. But that wasn't the case with Daniel. I mean, his parents did everything they could, but his addiction just grew too strong, you know? It's crazy. Usually we don't see that. It doesn't happen like that. They specifically forbid him from playing any game with adult ratings or that mature icon on the packaging. So even when Daniel would argue that the bad guys he was playing were only aliens or monsters, not real human people, his parents still didn't want him to play anything that was a shooting game.
They're allowed to do that. It's their house.
Yes.
These are my rules.
They're his parents.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. There's arguments for just like, yeah, just let him play, give him a boundary, let him play for an hour or whatever. Have some sort of moderation. But it's certainly their house. They can make that call, you know?
Sure, it's hard too because every kid at school has it. And, you know, it's like the peer pressure of almost like from the parents, you know?
Yep.
But again, they don't want it. That's their right.
Yeah. And all his friends are probably church kids, really. Like, I don't know how many of them were playing video games, but he was still exposed to it.
If there's a lot of kids in the house, there's a trampoline, or there's every video game console ever made.
You got to keep them busy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Susan agreed with Mark's anti-gaming stance, and his parents would not allow Daniel to buy the games or even have them in the house, period. Even if he borrowed them from a friend, it just wasn't allowed. They warned Daniel that if he did buy any games and they found them in the house, they would confiscate them and throw them away. The issue really came up frequently, and his father, Mark, would constantly repeat the rules to his son, which became really upsetting to Daniel to know that his games would be thrown away. In his teens, Daniel had a pretty bad snowboarding accident. And actually, during his recovery from the injury, it became even worse because he contracted a severe staph infection in his spine.
Sounds so painful.
It sounds like a nightmare. And he was just, housebound. The injury and the subsequent staph infection just left him completely at home in the bed for an entire year.
Yeah, they were like, if you walk, it could shift the infection and you could die if it goes in your bloodstream, all this crazy shit. And, he's young and he's active.
Yeah.
He's young. It's like, oh my God, what's he going to do? He's not a reader, Like this could be the time of his life.
That's a good way to put it.
If
he's not a reader. He could have got into Harry Potter at this point, but nope.
No, that's not what he's going to get into right now.
Wow.
But if he enjoyed reading, this could be the greatest year of his life.
Right. Just a ton of free time.
Just every book ever written.
Yeah. But that was not his activity of choice.
No.
He really had nothing to do but watch TV and play video games. Once he became trapped at home, he began playing the recently released Xbox game Halo, which he'd first played at a friend's house, of course. So again, even though Daniel tried to remind his parents that the enemies he was playing in Halo were aliens, not humans, his parents said the game was, quote, inappropriate because, again, it's a shooting game and he shouldn't play any shooting games. One weekend in particular, about a week before he had his violent issue, Daniel clocked a full 18 hours playing Halo, and he only stopped to eat and sleep and use the bathroom.
That is a long time. That's too long.
Yeah. Way too long. But I can say I have been there.
Sure.
I've said that before. And Halo was my game of choice at the time. And I've definitely played 18 hours in a weekend, for sure. Just don't leave the house, only play games.
And it's kind of like you can give him a little bit of leeway because he's stuck. He's right. Okay, what else is he going to do?
He can't really do anything else.
So it's, you've given him the game because, what's he going to do?
He's probably sneaking the game, honestly. I don't think they gave him the game.
No, not the game, but like the console.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
He has
like,
access to just playing games.
Yeah. And then you're going to, get upset with him or whatever when that's what he does. Is probably where this 16-year-old brain is. But, I mean, you've told him not to do this. Like, it's violent. It's shooting games. Now, again, you have a gun in your house. So it's kind of like, again, these mixed messages. Some punk kid. Well, you've got a gun, Dad. What are you talking about? I can't play games.
Right.
Who the hell knows?
But he just kind of had no choice. He was backed into a corner where, like, his parents just wanted to play things like Madden or racing games or stuff like that. Tony Hawk, probably. But at the same time, that's just not what he wants to do. It's
probably just not what his friends are doing either.
Right.
And, like, what's the point of playing this if I can't, like, talk to my friends about it, or the headset thing, if I don't know. Was that
if he's playing live or anything.
All these things. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just crazy. And I don't even think at this point in time, no, maybe he was playing on Xbox Live, now that I think about it. I thought it was earlier. But yeah, I mean, he probably does have some sort of peer component where everybody is getting certain stats or they're playing together online. So he feels like the odd man out if he's not able to play, and he doesn't really have an excuse, so to say, because he's at home and he can play. So I'm sure his friends were like, where were you, dude?
Right.
You
weren't at the park on Saturday. Which is really just like a headset in the basement, It's crazy.
So after this marathon weekend of playing for 18 hours, Mark told his son Daniel that if he couldn't give up the video gaming, then he needed to leave the house entirely. It's pretty clear that's a severe issue, right? If you're threatening to kick out your son.
Yeah. I think that's pretty harsh.
Yeah, it seems like the punishment doesn't fit the crime, but also he's had so many warnings where he knows that he's not supposed to do that.
They keep finding these games that, hey, we're going to destroy them. And, okay, easy, I'll destroy them. But it's like, it just gets irritating. It's the fact that you're disobeying me to my face. Now you're in my house playing a game that you're not even supposed to have. And again and again and again.
Yeah, they're just a broken record and they're sick of it. They've set out these rules, and especially because they are a strict religious family, that's everything to them. Their children being obedient is kind of a big deal in a religious home.
And especially preacher's kid.
Right. So yeah, I can see the reasons why it escalated to the point where they were going to kick him out, but also it's kind of like, you're the parents, just chill the fuck out, It's not that big of a deal. So, of course, with this threat, Daniel decided he wanted to leave. So he asked one of his friends if he could come over, and he stayed with the Johnson family for a few days.
This makes me think that the Johnsons kind of just, things are happening and it's happening around them. Whatever. They're just letting their kids do whatever.
Yeah, I don't really know much about the Johnsons, but it seems like they might be one of those families where they just have like 7 kids. And it's like, well, what's one more?
Yeah.
We've got the trampoline. We've got the video game console. We just throw one more into the mix. Order a bigger pizza, like you said.
Yeah. And then there's a chance, too, that maybe the Johnson parents called Reverend Mark and was like, hey, just so you know, your kid's here. Like, what the hell's going on? We'll keep him for a few days, let everybody calm down.
Yeah.
Whatever. We'll send him back over. You know what I mean?
There's definitely a part of me that seems like if I was a parent in the Johnson family, I'd be like, okay, your parents are just straight up tripping. Just stay here for a minute. You'll be fine. Just stay with us. It's okay. Because, I mean, I don't think parents should be that strict. It's not that big of a deal. It's just video games, Maybe regulate it to less amount of time to where it's not 18 hours. But just saying I'm going to kick you out, I don't agree with that. So if I was the Johnson family, I'd be like, yeah, of course, come over. Not forever, but, we're here to be kind of a break from that really oppressive religious household,
Yeah.
I would be right there. So I get it. So at this point, everyone around Daniel began taking notice that his video game addiction was really spiraling out of control. When he's willing to lose his home because of it, it's pretty severe.
Yeah, and other kids are like, hey, you might have an issue.
Right? If other kids that are gaming with you for hours at a time are just like, hey, you're way worse than me.
Right?
What's going on with
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive's #1, #2 employee. Leave a message at the... Hey, Jamie, it's me, Jamie. This is your daily pep talk. I know it's been rough going ever since people found out about your a cappella group, Mad Harmony, but you will bounce back. I mean, you're the guy always helping people find coverage options with the Name Your Price tool. It should be you giving me the pep talk. Now get out there, hit that high note, and take Mad Harmony all the way to nationals this year! Sorry, it's pitchy.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
And now, a thought from Geico Motorcycle.
It took 15 minutes to take a spirit animal quiz online.
Please be the cheetah. Please be the cheetah.
And learn your animal isn't the cheetah, but the far less appealing blobfish.
Oh, come on.
To add insult to injury, you could have used those 15 blobfish minutes to switch your motorcycle insurance to Geico.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance.
you, dude? Yeah. In September of 2007, Daniel saved up his allowance and he snuck out of his bedroom window. He went to the store and bought the violent video game Halo that he'd been banned from playing at his house. He bought his own copy.
Who sneaks out of their house to go buy video games?
Right?
It's not like to go have sex with the neighbor girl.
That is exactly what I was thinking. Like,
right?
It would make so much sense. If you are sneaking out for pussy, I get it. If you are sneaking out because all of your friends are out there, you're going to go have a beer, like teenage drinking or something. I get that. Video games?
Yeah.
To just like go buy a video game and then play by yourself? I understand social things, but not that.
This will never make sense to me.
Yeah.
I just don't understand. But it's also probably just, it's bigger than that now.
Right.
I'll show you.
I mean, I've played Halo for 18 hours in a weekend, like I said, and I still don't understand it. So even being someone who has in the past played excessive amounts of video games, it really doesn't make sense to me. Like if you don't have the video game, your life isn't over. It's not heroin, It's
dopamine, affects the same places in the brain.
Yeah.
Might as well be.
And I saw, I didn't look into it too much, but there was some studies saying that the amount of dopamine is really high with video games, so like dopamine's released with anything that you think is fun or pleasurable or whatever, but it really peaks with video games. So I don't know. I guess he's chasing that Halo dragon.
I've read that too, and that the instant gratification hit from a video game with dopamine, it's dangerous because you don't have to do any sort of drug. Wait for it to kick in kind of thing.
It's so much easier to get access to. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you are addicted to a video game like that, I mean, you would be the equivalent of like lying on the ground ODing, right? But nothing's going to do that to you. So it's almost more dangerous in the instant gratification, which fuels the addiction.
Yeah, I need to look more into those studies. And I started like just tipping the surface. And then I was like, yeah, that's not really, I'm not going to go that route. We already have so much information.
I'm already just like, I'm so horrified and just disturbed that, these
it's a bad
kids
wormhole
today.
So like I said, he went to the store after sneaking out. He bought the game Halo that he'd been playing at his friend's house. His mother, Susan, discovered that Daniel was climbing back into his bedroom window and attempting to play the video game that they'd forbidden in the house. So just like his parents had threatened, Susan confiscated the game from Daniel and told her husband what just happened.
Mom just burned him.
Yeah.
So tough.
Well, I mean, they said it was going to happen. Like, they're not the type of parents to make empty threats,
Wait till your father gets home.
Just wait till your dad hears about this.
Oh, God.
That's always the threat.
Please don't tell him that. Please don't tell him. Mom, please don't tell him. But I have to tell. No, Mom, please.
Oh, God. That's the worst feeling.
Horrible.
Just knowing that, like, half of the consequence is already there because
It's
someone
gonna
already
happen.
knows, but you're just suspended in the like, your punishment's almost here. It's in the mail.
It's like waiting for the date of execution.
Right.
Shit, it's coming.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got 8 hours.
Yeah. Dad gets home at 5 o'clock. So you're screwed. So when Susan told Mark, he locked the game into a lockbox safe that they kept in their bedroom, which also held Mark's 9mm Taurus PT-92 handgun. At this point, Daniel became extremely agitated and angry and even a bit paranoid about the situation because he believed the only reason that Mark took the game was so that he could play it himself. And he kind of went into this downward spiral of how it's just not fair, that his dad's going to play it, and that's the only reason he took it.
That is a wild rationalization.
It's just very delusional to me. It's very paranoid. I can understand that he's sitting there thinking, well, you said you'd throw it away. The fact that you kept it and put it in a lockbox made him suspicious. However, that really just logically doesn't make sense. Your dad just wants to read the Bible just 24/7. He doesn't care about this stupid game.
If you're accusing him of that, that means that in the past, maybe he's played it. Or maybe someone said to him, hi, I'm Mr. Johnson. Hey, Rev, you're super square. Maybe try playing it sometime.
Right. Why don't you let loose?
Hey, maybe let your hair down and see if you enjoy it. You'll see. And he's just like, I'm not playing video games. This is not my thing.
Yeah, Jesus doesn't like that.
No. Keeps his hair up. Maybe at some point, like he had said, oh, I played this game. It was fun for, an hour at a time. Maybe, something. Because it's a weird thing to just, I know people all the time, hey, well, you did this because you, whatever, it's your thing. But it just seems weird coming from him that I feel like there's got to be like a history to this accusation.
And I hear that. But I'm kind of in the opposite camp. I'm just like, well, he's kind of spiraling out right now because the game just got taken from him.
Oh, yeah.
It's the equivalent of just being like in instant detox. Like you're a junkie, you don't have access to heroin, And that to me, like your mind kind of just goes into a different place, To me, I think that there probably isn't any history of him gaming or anything that would really point to him playing the game. But in Daniel's mind, he's just grasping at straws that are just so not reality, because his mind's just in full on jonesing for Halo.
The doctor has cut off the pill addict, so they're just going to break into the pharmacy.
Yep.
And it's interesting because, again, they're doing everything right. Guns locked up. I mean, everything you're told to do for like safety when kids are in the house. There's just like lists you can check off. Outlet covers, guns, lock them up. There's all these things. And it didn't matter with this kid.
Yeah, it's just so crazy that they were so invested. Whether you agree with their parenting techniques or the severity of how strict they were or not, which I don't, it's still just like they are the parents that are doing everything right. Like you said, they've got the lockbox. They're adhering to every sort of safety procedure that they could. They're setting all the rules and boundaries. They're outlaying the consequences for their child and not just confiscating it like without warning. You know what I mean? They've done all the communication. They've laid all the groundwork for this to be a positive parenting experience. And it's just not. The addiction is too strong. It's crazy.
It's true, too, because you're not supposed to just make like some sort of empty threat or one day you never say anything and then just take it and you've never even told them, this could happen. They've done everything that, not a parent, again, asterisk, but it's just everything you hear, okay.
Yeah, all the advice columns are just, the boxes are ticked on this one.
People I know with
right.
kids, what they do, got to take care of this, whatever. I mean. It's an interesting, some kids are just going to kill you, man. And you know, while
Is
I've
that
been
the moral of the
researching,
story?
I found the scariest statistic that every 5 days a kid kills their parent in the United States.
Really?
Yes.
Oy.
I didn't like it one bit. And when I read it the first time, I read it as 5 kids kill their parents every day. Wait a second.
Of course
Wait.
you would see that.
Yeah, I know.
You're in complete mom mode right now.
Yeah.
You're like, the kids are just shooting at us on the streets.
Getting their dopamine hits. Like, oh my God, I'm just freaking out.
You're totally losing it.
I really am.
Wow. But that is jarring. You know, that's a
Every
lot.
5 days.
That's a lot.
So-
Just another reason I'm grateful I can't have an accidental kid when I'm in a relationship with a
One less
woman.
person that's going to try to kill you.
Right?
They're coming. They're trying to get us. Except sometimes it's your kid.
Oy. Yeah. It's crazy. So, of course, with all this lead up where this conflict is happening between the parents and Daniel, it really exploded on October 20th, 2007. And it was a month after the game was confiscated. And slowly, you know, the tension was building. Nothing was getting resolved. Daniel wasn't, you know, jonesing any less over time. And he decided that he needed to steal Mark's safe key and open the lockbox. Daniel took his game back, and while he was in the lockbox, he decided to also grab the handgun as well.
Just poor decision making and impulse. It just sounds so impulsive.
Daniel brought the gun with him and went into the living room to talk to his parents. Mark and Susan were sitting on the couch in the living room. They were just relaxing and watching TV together. Even though Daniel had been seething on the inside since his game was confiscated, suddenly he just acted like he wasn't angry anymore, and there was no problem between him and his parents.
I mean, every morning he's got to go to school, so they've got to wake him. Daniel, come on, we got to go to school. These like little tiny everyday little, you know, experiences with this kid, interactions. He starts to, you know, let his guard down, whatever, and they just falsely think that everything's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like he had been angry for weeks leading up to this. And he had been treating them differently. He'd been very defiant. He'd, you know, just been lashing out at them. And then all of a sudden, he walks into the living room and he's calm. He's not resentful. He doesn't have that tone that he's been having. And his parents probably felt a sense of relief at first, like, oh, things are going back to normal, you know? Daniel's back. The real Daniel's back.
I'm glad you say that, because I would immediately be suspicious of my kid. This kid is trouble. I told him the stove was hot and he touched it anyway, damn it. You know, I caught him coming in through a window. Things don't just automatically fix themselves like this.
Yeah.
You have a serious addiction to it doesn't just go away.
Yeah, I
Come on,
totally
kid.
get that. I get it. Especially when you're already looking into the statistics of how many kids kill their parents.
Right?
Yeah. So, of course, he walks into the living room. He's acting completely normal, way more calm than he had in the past few weeks. And what was really going on was that he had the gun behind his back. And he said to his parents, "Would you close your eyes? I have a surprise for you." Of course, they really didn't think anything crazy would happen. And they thought nothing of closing their eyes and just complying with what Daniel had asked. Once both of them had their eyes closed, Daniel shot Mark in the left side of the head. Daniel's parents really just didn't see this coming. This came out of nowhere, and since they didn't anticipate it, they were completely shocked because he had caught them off guard. First, Mark's head went numb, and he was so shocked that he really didn't know what had happened. And it only became clear that he was shot when he saw blood begin to pour out of his skull. Daniel then pointed the gun at Susan and shot her 3 times, once in the head, once in the arm, and another time in the chest, which killed her instantly. He then tried to stage the scene to look like a murder-suicide, with his father being the murderer. So he walked over to Mark and he put the gun in his father's hand. And he said to him, "Here, Dad, here's the gun. Take it."
That's wild. Here, Dad, here's your gun. Take it. Take this, Dad. He's like laying on the ground and can't even breathe. Just like.
It's an unbelievable scene.
Here's your gun.
So as he was trying to stage this fake murder-suicide, suddenly the doorbell rang. Daniel had completely forgotten that his older sister, Heidi, and her husband, Andrew Archer, had plans to come over to watch a Cleveland Indians baseball game. So Daniel ran over to the door and he yelled through the door without opening it that they couldn't come in because their parents were arguing.
Yeah, and this is when I just go, oh, Mom and Dad are fighting, and you just push that door. Oh, I gotta see this, right? Like, you're not stopping me with that excuse.
Right, that's
Mom
not
and
enough.
Dad are super calm. It's boring in here. All right.
All right, I'll go home.
I'll
Turning the
wait a
car
little
around.
bit, I guess. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, but if they're fighting, I gotta see that.
What the hell are they fighting about? What's
My
going on?
parents never fight.
Yeah, what's going on?
That's straight up Jerry Springer for free.
They do Christian counseling on the side, maybe. Like at church, he's a reverend. He probably does like premarital counseling. They have a wonderful relationship.
Right.
Why are they fighting?
They're the perfect couple.
Open the door. Now they're going to be on Dateline, thanks to their son.
What Daniel didn't know when he told his sister that they couldn't come in and they were fighting was that Mark was actually still alive at the time. And when Mark heard Daniel lying to his sister, he mustered up all of his strength so he could make the loudest sound possible, because he hoped that Heidi would hear him and barge in. So through the door, Heidi and Andrew could hear this groaning noise in the living room. So they pushed their way through the door. They immediately saw their parents on the floor in the center of the room, and Heidi ran to her father, and Mark again mustered the strength to speak through his shattered jaw. His jaw was just in pieces. And he said to Heidi that Daniel had shot them.
What a scene. I mean,
I can't imagine being Heidi.
Heidi, yeah. Oh, man.
That's
and Andrew.
a nightmare.
Both of them, just, let me watch a baseball game.
Yeah, they just thought it was a normal day.
Yeah.
Once Mark tells them that Daniel was the shooter, now it sets in like, where's the gun? Where's Daniel? What's going on? So Heidi and Andrew looked around the room and they realized that the gun was no longer sitting on the couch because Daniel had picked it up. Andrew walked over to him and took the gun with no resistance from Daniel. That's one of the good things about the story. A lot of times they just escalate, but Daniel he just gave it up right away.
I think he was also in shock. Just, I'm holding this now.
Yeah, he may have been dissociated and not even realized that someone was about to take the gun.
Oh, sure.
But Heidi called 911, and when she turned to confront her brother, she saw that he had ran out of the house. He stole the family van, he put his copy of Halo 3 in the passenger seat, and attempted to flee.
Now, full disclosure, there are many, many, many reports that he took the Halo 3 game and a container of lube. And that is what they caught him with.
Wow.
But
he must really love Master Chief.
Loves.
Wow.
Loves it.
Whole nother level.
Most things leave that out. And I didn't really know how, I was looking into how reputable this, whatever the publication was.
Right. Was it the Sun?
The Vice? What the hell was it? But yeah, I thought that was kind of an interesting detail.
Yeah, that is weird. But lube may also be something that was not allowed in the house.
Maybe.
Maybe
it was in the
he just
lockbox.
took his forbidden stuff. Oh, maybe it was. That would be weird.
Strange days. God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah, and God needs lubricant, apparently. So he tried to speed off, but fortunately, the police arrived really quickly and they were able to form a roadblock and stop him. He was taken by the police with no real struggle, But as he was being cuffed, he yelled, "My dad shot my mom," of course, in this last-ditch effort to frame his father. Miraculously, Mark survived the whole thing, although he lost consciousness in the ambulance and he ended up being in a coma for 3 weeks.
I can't believe he was even able to talk.
I know. With a shattered jaw, he's just, oh man, I can't believe it. Mark did not find out that his wife, Susan, was dead until he woke up from a medically induced coma weeks after the shooting. And by that point, Sue had already had a funeral. She'd been buried while he was in a coma. So Mark really struggled with missing the services and not having that kind of closure.
That would be terrible.
I know. I can't imagine. I really can't imagine.
That just makes me sad for him.
Yeah. Not to get too real, but I've been a part of one of those things where someone woke up and you had to tell them that someone else had passed away. And it's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I can't even believe, like, I don't know how people survive that kind of emotional stuff.
Yeah.
You know, Mark really, really, really had a hard time after this.
And his son did it.
Yeah. On top of all that, just even it happening is tragic enough, but knowing that it was within your family and your son was the perpetrator, it's just so heartbreaking.
I guess this is when you, especially as a pastor, you lean on the God will never give you more than you can handle.
Bullshit.
What?
I've had some pretty bad days.
This guy's had a bad day.
Right. Like, oh man.
I know.
Daniel was only 17 when he was charged with aggravated murder and attempted aggravated murder. His trial began on December 15th, 2008.
Finding the right pros for home projects can be tough and spark a lot of questions like, how do I find a pro who can help? Will they do a good job? Will I get a fair price? That's where Home Advisor can help. From leaky faucets to major remodels, Home Advisor connects you to the right pro for the job in seconds and even helps you get a fair price. Read reviews, check project cost guides, and book appointments. Go to homeadvisor.com or download the free Home Advisor app to start your next project. Finding the right pros for home projects can be tough and spark a lot of questions like, how do I find a pro who can help? Will they do a good job? Will I get a fair price? That's where Home Advisor can help. From leaky faucets to major remodels, Home Advisor connects you to the right pro for the job in seconds and even helps you get a fair price. Read reviews, check project cost guides, and book appointments. Go to homeadvisor.com or download the free Home Advisor app to start your next project.
And was done without a jury in front of Judge James Burke. Daniel's defense attorney, James Kersey, argued that Daniel was not guilty by reason of insanity. Kersey argued that due to the staph infection and the stress to his body, he was more susceptible to the violent video games influencing him.
It's not a bad argument.
No, really. I mean, it makes some sense. You know, he had nowhere else to go. His body was, struggling with so much that takes an emotional toll on you. Maybe you are more likely to become addicted, The defense elaborated that if a teen who seemed to lead an active lifestyle, as of course the snowboarding would suggest, had suddenly just been homebound for a year, it may have had a profoundly negative impact on his psyche. Kersey took it further, stating Daniel's mind had been permanently affected by playing the games for such long periods of time.
That I can't get behind because the brain is amazing and can do amazing things and can rebuild and, I don't want to say regenerate because that's not true, but, like things can spark on, spark off.
Right.
Brain is an amazing organ.
Yeah.
And if you were affected by that, which technically, again, it's not a chemical that has gotten into you. It's just a pattern of behavior you've become addicted to now. If you stop the behavior that is causing you to have this addiction, it will slowly fade away and you can move forward and get over it and be sober now, 10 years when I was addicted to video games.
It's me raising my hand over here.
Is that you over there? Nice. But yeah, you take it away. You know, there's a chance for this. This isn't like meth psychosis. Burn holes in your brain and shit, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the perfect point. I mean, really, there's substances that cause permanent changes, permanent damage. This isn't that case. And he's still so young and he's still at this very developmental age. Like he can learn new habits because this is a behavioral thing and overcome. Like he would have been able to get better, you know?
Yeah.
But of course, the defense attorney was on the opposite side. He claimed that the effects had been so severe that he didn't understand reality, he didn't understand the finality of death, or that his parents wouldn't simply respawn if he shot them. I have trouble believing that.
Me too.
Yeah, I don't know. I understand having, like we talked about last week, that decreased empathy, a little bit of distance from reality. But thinking that in real life, your parents are going to just come back like a video game, I just don't buy it. I really don't.
And there's nothing leading up to that pointing that you believe that.
Right. Yeah. If there was some sort of more minor something going on where you would exhibit it that you think that something that happened in a video game would happen in real life, maybe I could see that. But there's no evidence to that.
Like if a week prior he killed the cat because he was like, I want to see if it'll respawn.
Right. Like
and he's
testing
like really
the boundaries or
questioning
something.
his reality.
Like I have a thesis that's based on a video game. Here, let me test it. But there was really nothing like that. So I don't buy it. I just don't.
He's scientific methoding the cat.
Oh no.
He's got the theories and this is great. Hypothesis.
Yeah. That's just, I don't know. It would make more sense to me if there had been some sort of incident, but that's not the case. Daniel's father and sister both testified for the prosecution. One day during the trial, about 24 of Daniel's friends, mostly from his church youth group, came to visit him. And this was one of the only times that he showed emotion during the whole trial. The other time that he showed emotion was when his mother's autopsy photos were shown on a screen.
Maybe he didn't realize how serious what he had done was. Okay. But I have a hard time with all this. Like he just thought they were going to come back to life. And then, you know, he's seeing the autopsy photos and she's not coming back. Is that why he's upset? Probably not. His mom is dead. He's a kid.
Well, I think
I understand it.
Yeah, to me it makes more sense like what we talked about last week. And I feel like I keep bringing it up, but really it is the decreased empathy to me. Like he didn't really have any feeling during the shooting that it was sad what he was doing to his parents. He didn't really feel for them and the loss that he was inflicting on them until he had been removed from playing video games for the entire trial and all of his custody. Now it's like, well, the reality sets in. Now his empathy is kind of back. And he's like, oh shit, there's a life that I took of a woman that raised me, you know? But at the time, I think that there's a good argument to be made that that didn't really strike a chord with him, that he didn't really think it through how emotional that was because he was so detached from his emotions.
Yeah.
You know? The prosecutor argued that by repeatedly trying to say that his dad killed his mom, that specifically showed that he had no remorse for his actions. The prosecution tried to draw the parallel that because he was trying to frame his father for the murder, then that means he knew that what he was doing was wrong.
He's right.
It really makes total sense. Even if he had, like I said, the lack of empathy, he knew that he could get in trouble. He knew consequences. Therefore, he was attached to reality. He knew the severity of his actions.
He ran because he was going to be in trouble.
Exactly.
Because what he did was wrong.
Prosecutors also argued that the fact that he had to steal the key to the safe was proof that he had planned this out and premeditated the murder. Again, there's a point to that. It makes sense.
Even if the plan was like 5 minutes long and just impulsively like, this is what I'm doing, he still had to do some things to make this work.
Right. He had to acquire the key.
Yes.
He had to sneak into the bedroom. Like, there's a to-do list that he put together, which, of course, says premeditation.
Yep.
Mark believes Daniel is truly remorseful. He asked the judge for leniency. He said, quote, "I can't count the number of times that he said, 'Dad, I miss Mom.'"
Bet he does.
Yeah. The judge, however, was not swayed, and he handed down a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 23 years. The only reason the judge didn't sentence him to death was, of course, because he was a minor at the time of the crime.
Just makes me think that this judge is not really believing in like video game addiction. He was going to give him death. Because the whole argument of why he did it is because he was addicted to video games. So that should keep him from getting death. But if you don't buy that.
Right, then he's a straight up murderer.
And he's a kid. Like the only thing keeping him is that he's a kid.
Yep. Yeah.
He didn't buy any of that.
No, I think that the judge was definitely on the team of none of that stuff they brought up with the psychological, like video game addiction stuff really mattered. This kid is a murderer. A murderer is a murderer. That's all he thought,
Yeah.
It's very straightforward. When the verdict was read, Daniel shook his head and he held back tears. When the judge asked if he had any comment, he chose to just sit down quietly instead of speaking. In October of 2015, 24-year-old Daniel filed an appeal challenging his conviction based on the grounds of inadequate legal representation. The appeal cited many instances of the attorneys persuading him in certain directions, coupled with the law changing regarding those with diminished capacity.
I think maybe that he felt like these defense, after the fact, give him some years to think about it, that the defense attorneys were really almost like this was going to be our big case to make the video game argument. This is what we would refer to in the books later as such and such versus such and such, the case that made the law for, video game addiction.
Yeah, I think there are
precedent setting. I'm so bad today. I can't remember any word.
I hate that. That's a frustrating feeling.
It's terrible.
We see this all the time. I mean, there's so many people that just get lost in being made the example or being the precedent. That is just a bigger thing for whatever person that's either maybe having political aspirations. Like, I think we're seeing this in the Adnan case, you know what I mean? Like,
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this definitely could have been an issue where Daniel was caught in the crosshairs there, where someone was trying to make a point and say, this is our video game case. This is going to change things. This is going to set the example. But again, he was made the example of hey, the video game thing is bullshit. I'm the judge. He's a murderer. Send him away. So there is an argument for his appeal that maybe he was that case that just got lost in other people making a point and using him as the example.
It would make me nervous that I would get a worse sentence if I was him.
Yeah, to reopen everything. But he really believes that if he were tried again, he'd receive a lighter sentence. He truly wholeheartedly believes it. However, the appeals filing didn't go very far, and it was ultimately denied. Daniel is now 28 years old and has served 11 years of his life sentence. There were many op-eds and commentaries written about this case, and they pointed out that these parents did everything right, like we said earlier.
That's really what I kind of took away from this too.
Even if you do everything right, you could be that statistic.
Yeah, it freaked people out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think definitely if you're a parent that's invested in wanting to do the right thing and raise your kid right, and you want to see all the studies, relating to how you deal with certain situations. We're in that age where you can parent with research, right? So now your kid is oh, I'm playing these first-person shooters, and you're a parent you're freaked out, you're looking into it. This case is scary because these parents did everything right. And if you're that parent at home looking for what to do, and you see that even if you do everything right, things could go so terribly wrong, it's scary.
There's also this is just a Courtney adding her 2 cents angle on this, which is that you're a reverend of a church. Therefore, people come to you. It's now 12:15 on Sunday. Church is out. Hey, Pastor, I've been having some issues with my son. I know your son plays video games a lot. What do you do? I really trust your opinion and your judgment. What is your protocol for screen time, right? And he's just like, oh, well, this is what we do. And this kid is messing with every single one of these things he's like trying to tell people. And it's not like, he needs to look good or anything, but it's probably hard for him to be like, hey, this is what you should do when your kid is out of control with it. And I just thought that this whole time, that's also another aspect of you've done everything right, and this kid is still fucking up.
Yeah. I mean, I think in religious families, there is a lot of keeping up with the Joneses, especially if you are the pastor at that church. You are the example for everyone.
Exactly.
And so there's a lot of people, I'm sure, within his congregation that were like maybe questioning if they had done stuff wrong, or just completely terrified that they had done everything right and it still led to the murder,
Imagine the next service, the next Sunday after this murder, and you're just like, okay, everything he ever told me, what? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Oh God.
Let's do the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, they did everything right. I mean, they monitored his internet and game use time. They set all the rules and boundaries around gaming. They followed through on their consequences when they were broken. I mean, yeah, they communicated with him about everything, but it just didn't help. And they followed all the gun safety precautions. They kept the guns locked away. The ammunition was stored safely. There was a lockbox, but it just didn't change the outcome. The media and public perception reflected overwhelming confusion about how parents could do everything right, yet still have the situation go tragically wrong. And there was really nothing else that they could have done. During the trial, Mark forgave his son, while still making it clear that he had committed the crime. Mark said, quote, "You can't do something like that without being evil. When he killed my wife, Daniel was evil." Mark also says that Daniel has apologized to him again and again for his injuries and what he did to Susan.
I mean, I'm sure he feels terrible.
Yeah, now that reality is set in, he has some distance from gaming, like everything is more clear now. Mark also recounted an emotional exchange between father and son where Daniel said, quote, "Dad, I'm so sorry for what I did to Mom, to you, and to the whole family. I'm so glad that you're alive." And Mark reassured his son, "You're my son and you're my boy."
Wow. It's like tugging the heartstrings,
Yeah.
You can just see this interaction between a father and son. And your son has just destroyed your face and killed your wife. And you're my boy.
There's definitely a part of me that knows that no matter what my child ever did, I would still love them no matter what. It would be completely 100% unconditional. But then the other part of me that just knows that would be such a huge internal struggle, knowing that I do unconditionally love this person that murdered my partner and tried to murder me.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So Heidi says that since the family has forgiven Daniel, they really want him to come home, mostly because she believes that their whole family can't fully heal until they're all together again.
That's going to open a whole new can when he comes home.
Yeah, I just don't imagine ever feeling safe again.
No.
Yeah. Mark had to have 6 surgeries within 5 months to reconstruct the damage done to his face. The portion of his jawbone where the bullet was lodged was actually completely removed, and he had to have multiple bone grafts to his skull and jaw. Mark believes that because Daniel had renounced his faith in God about 6 weeks before the murder, that the devil came after him. He basically stopped just short of specifically stating that Daniel was possessed by the devil when he committed the murder.
Yeah, he says it in small, like in these roundabout ways. My son had to be evil when he committed it, but he is not evil, but he had to be. So therefore, something made him evil. Like, just go all the way and be like, my son was possessed by the devil.
Yeah.
He came for him.
Yeah, just be real about it.
Right. This is what you believe, I guess.
Yeah. Even though, of course, he thinks that he was possessed, obviously he thinks that that's over and he's better and whatever, enough to where Mark visits Daniel regularly in prison and has forgiven him, you know? Microsoft refused to comment about the murder, but they issued a very brief statement saying, "We are aware of the situation and it's a tragic case."
What are they going to say?
Yeah, there's nothing to say. I mean, they can't really acknowledge what happened, right? Because then that's kind of admitting fault.
They sell millions and millions of copies of this game. Most people don't kill their parents.
Right.
So, yeah, we're aware of it, but I mean, hey, it has nothing to do with us.
Yeah, he's the outlier. He's
Cigarettes
the very
kill
small
people.
statistic.
Cancer. People still buy cigarettes.
Right.
I mean, you can't, like, Marlboro is only so much to blame.
Yeah. But even then, the statistics are so much higher, you know? This is definitely a much smaller portion of video game players versus smokers, you know?
But
so
what are they going to say, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you didn't kill anybody.
Yeah, I think that most people don't, you know? I mean, there's so many people that play video games. They don't end up like Daniel. They don't end up trying to act out Grand Theft Auto. They just don't, period. But, you know, this person, for whatever reason, you know, like we talked about last week, there are risk factors, there are additional, you know, underlying conditions, whatever it may be, you know, that he was more susceptible to this. He was more prone to, you know, lash out and be violent. There was something there. It has to be a combination. Then when the video games are thrown in, then it just goes that step further.
It's like weakened immunity, and then the flu comes in.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah. So that's the story of Daniel Petric, our addiction-based video game murder.
There's so many of just these video game, like you just Google and it's just a little scarier than I thought. And I'm a grandma. It's happened.
No, I hear you. It is very, very scary to look at these things. But yeah, I don't know. At least at the beginning, when we were talking about the statistics, it does seem that the addiction factor is low among video game players.
The people that are hooked are hooked.
Right. But it is one of those cases where it's like I don't know, there's the segment of people that are probably a lot louder, a lot more visible, that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like of any community, it's like that, where like the radicals, you know, are just a little bit more visible. I think that this is that case where it's like, okay, the people that are suffering from the addiction, it seems like it's a higher number only because it's getting so much media attention, the headlines, the cases are big.
Yeah, probably right.
Or at least that's what I'm trying to tell myself so that I don't turn into complete mom mode and never leave the house.
Sure. I'm there. Never leaving my house again.
But one of the reasons I love the Murder Dictionary format is that we're going to do one more gamer next week, and then we're going to move on to something else.
Yay.
So we don't have to be scared of every 13-year-old we see.
No, hopefully not.
I hope that goes away.
I do too.
Grocery stores are hard right now.
Terrifying.
So that's pretty much it for us this week. If you want to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, we've got those links in the show notes. And if you want to see more about some of the media coverage of this case, if you want to see more about video game psychology, we've got those links in the show notes. And if you are interested in finding out about how Motley Crue has done a shit ton of crimes, then definitely check out Let's Talk About True Crime with myself and Esther this past week. And what else? We got anything else? Reviews,
no, but
if you haven't left them, that would be
leave us a review.
awesome. We'd always appreciate that. And our Patreon people. Yeah?
Yeah.
If I can open up my phone. So
summer's coming, and I'm going to get a beach towel.
Yes.
On Threadless.
A Murder Dictionary beach towel is available on Threadless, murderdictionary.threadless.com.
They also have, I think it's new, like this new cut. It's like a muscle tank for Murder Dictionary. It's pretty good. So there's some cute summer stuff.
Life.
I know. I don't have it yet.
Yeah. That's crazy.
We were going through winter, so I have a hoodie. I got long sleeves, all this stuff.
But now summer's here.
Now it's muscle tank, muscle tea time.
Revealing Murder Dictionary merch.
Right.
So yeah, if you want that, it's murderdictionary.threadless.com. If you want to join our Patreon, it's patreon.com/murderdictionarypodcast. We've got some new bonus episodes. We're probably, I'm thinking, going to record a gamer bonus soon. So look out for that. We will announce that when it comes out. And we wanted to say thank you to our new patrons who are Jean, Box, Dan, and Jenny.
Thanks again, patrons.
So thanks, you guys, for joining our Patreon. And I think that's pretty much it. We're ready to get out of here, and we'll be back with a little bit more mom mode gamers next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. You guys have a good one. Be nice to each other. Be safe. And we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Hey, you know what? Just like you, I love true crime. I love it so much, I started a podcast called Once Upon a Crime. On that podcast, I give you a new true crime case every week in a storytelling style. In my new podcast, Let's Talk About True Crime, I've decided to give you a little taste of something different. Because you see, I love to discuss true crime with others, and I don't get a chance to do that often enough. Now, I know you have plenty of true crime podcasts to choose from, many in a discussion style format. I mean, you can take your true crime with a beer, or a martini, or a glass of wine. But until now, you weren't offered true crime and tacos. And really, what could be a better combination? But seriously, I started this new podcast because I want to talk about the things you want to talk about. Each episode, I and a featured guest host will share, review, and discuss everything true crime. The only prerequisite is that they love true crime and tacos. So take a seat at the table and let's talk about true crime. Subscribe today. Search for Let's Talk About True Crime on your favorite podcast platform.
Finding the right pros for home projects can be tough and spark a lot of questions like, how do I find a pro who can help? Will they do a good job? Will I get a fair price? That's where HomeAdvisor can help. From leaky faucets to major remodels, HomeAdvisor connects you to the right pro for the job in seconds and even helps you get a fair price. Read reviews, check project cost guides, and book appointments. Go to HomeAdvisor.com or download the free HomeAdvisor app to start your next project.
Let's say you just bought a house. Bad news is, you're one step closer to becoming your parents. You'll proudly mow the lawn. Ask if anybody noticed you mowed the lawn. tell people to stay off the lawn, compare it to your neighbor's lawn, and complain about having to mow the lawn again. Good news is, it's easy to bundle home and auto through Progressive and save on your car insurance, which, of course, will go right into the lawn. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Discount not available in all states or situations.